Today, 135 left in, 232 kilometre long stage with a sticky end as we join the action 5 kilometres from the finish, and it is Gabriele Massilia in the Lamprey colours up front and Paolo Bettini in the King of the Mountains jersey, and they're only just ahead of a very important group.
Very long stage too, 232 kilometres, but the sting really does come in the tail because this is a very vicious mountain top finish, well I should say hilltop finish, and a lot of riders feel that they've got a chance of victory here, and one man who feels that he can win the stage is Marco Pantani, Phil, because he sent all of his Mercatone Uno riders up to the front. The advantage of the two leaders is hovering around about 25 seconds, but you can see there's big pressure from the pink jerseys team there of Marco Pantani. The Mercatone Uno boys are going for it today.
Well, this is another chance for Pantani, of course, if they can get those two riders up front, although I'm not so sure a little group will get up there, probably more like a big bunch as these two try to escape. Really, it hasn't been a great day of attacks. They've tried and they've failed, the sprinters, to get away, and they've been put back in their place at 4 kilometres to go now. There's a counter-attack on the way. This is Filippo Simeoni.
Filippo Simeoni trying to get himself across there, but for the moment the two leaders are holding on to their advantage. Missaglia has ridden a very good Giro d'Italia, not with too much success so far, but he's always been in threatening to get himself a stage victory, and Paolo Bettini has been regularly in the front when it has come to the big mountain passes. That's why he's leading the King of the Mountains competition, just ahead of Marco Pantani, who's leading the pink jersey.
Well, these two are not leaving themselves a lot of room for manoeuvre here, Paul, because they're not putting their backs into this group, and the chase is flat out behind them.
In fact, there it is. They've just caught a glimpse there of the yellow jerseys of Mercatone Uno coming around the corner there. That was a pretty rapid comeback from the rest of the main field, and right up in the action field is the pink jersey of Marco Pantani.
So they've been caught, and they've been caught not far away from the finishing line. That is a shame for those two because they worked hard to get away, but there's too much impetus in the chase behind here because the pink jersey, you can see it for yourselves, Marco Pantani is there. So too in this group is Laurent Jalabert, so the top two riders overall are definitely here.
Well, in fact, Bettini's kicked again and he's gone off for the front again. That was a remarkable reaction because he saw that the main field had come back to him and he felt, I don't want to give up just now. I'm going to put the hammer down a little bit more and try and hope that there's no reaction from the main field. But a rider here from Seiko Cannondale deciding he wants to try and get across, but they're not going to escape the grip today of Mercatone Uno. There you can see the pink jersey on the shoulders of Marco Pantani, who's moved up very closely now into fourth position, but Jalabert now has come up to the front.
Well, these are basically the leaders in the general classification, because Savidelli is also here now, but he's not in evidence for the sprint, as Laurent Jalabert is again showing us to be a revelation of this tour as an attack goes now. And that is Gilberto Simoni of Balan, who is getting stronger every day in these mountains, who's tried to open up the sprint.
Gilbert still in second place there, but they've got a gap over the rest of the main field, and now it's a big reaction coming from Marco Pantani. He's right on the wheel of Laurent Jalabert, who's going to lead this one out from a very long way.
And in fact, Jalabert is going to win, or is he? Because that was a very late challenge by Pantani, but a good victory and the third one of the tour for Laurent Jalabert. A bit casual it appeared on the line, but Pantani still very much there and present. And I wonder if Pantani will strike on the time trial tomorrow, but today you can see it's flat, it's tailor-made for the sprinters, 212 kilometres, and that is the way it's going to turn out now. Can Cipollini win again, Paul? 10 years ago to the day he won his very first stage in the Giro when he was only 22.
Well, he always likes to rise for the big occasions, but you know, we haven't talked about Mario Cipollini for a couple of days, and there once again under the Flamme Rouge, the red kite, the team from Mario Cipollini have got everything under control, but there is Jeroen Blijlevens, and he knows which wheel he wants to follow.
Indeed, indeed, and at this stage of the race we don't normally see Mario Cipollini still in it as we come towards the end of the final week, but still in it he is, although the real tough stages in the mountains are still to come after the time trial. But right now he's still thinking of a stage victory here as he ticks along as usual, two wheels down the line, and Jeroen Blijlevens thinks this time he may have hooked up to the right train.
He's got all his boys there leading him out, and there you can see Jeroen Blijlevens is the last real sprinter left in the race because we've lost Jans Verrada and we've also lost a couple of other big sprinters, so it's going to be a big match I think today between Cipollini and Blijlevens. There's a bit of a switch going over there on the left hand side. That's what these sprints are like at the Giro d'Italia, but the last man is there on the front. Fanini now is swinging off. Come on Mario, it's all up to you.
Well, in fact, it's Sergei Smetanine who's gone round there first because there looked a little bit of confusion with the lead-out men. Smetanine is trying to win it for Italico, but here comes Cipollini, 10 years ago a winner, and in 1999, win number 4. He has won by 2 or 3 lengths as he enjoyed that one. Mario Cipollini is still winning his 29th stage victory, and he's not too happy with the attention.
He's an amazing rider. He came out of that pack like a bolt of lightning. Nobody was going to stop him. They were all over the road on the right-hand side, but Mario Cipollini, Phil, came cruising down the middle, full speed ahead. Nobody was going to stop him getting win number 4.
So Cipollini, the winner of the sprint, and of course in the overall classification, there is no change at all. There will be soon. Into the last 5 days of racing, starting with the time trial here at Treviso, and that's a 45-kilometre test now, something like 27.5 miles. And after this time trial, we go into the mountains. But right now, this man preoccupied, starting from the back, Pantani, and these are the time checks so far. And again, he's up amongst the leaders, Paul.
He's riding a pretty good time trial. He certainly has improved his time trialing ability over the last couple of years, and it was that time trial improvement that in fact gave him the victory last year at the Tour de France. This is the intermediary time split, but for the moment, one man, Sergei Gonchar, is out on the road setting some pretty fast times.
Well, we expect Gonchar to be up amongst the leaders, and here he comes now. He's looking at Bastia's time of 53.37 at this particular check. This is the finish, I'm sorry. Gonchar coming in now with certainly the best time, 52 minutes, 55 seconds, and as usual, he has now set the trend for others to follow. Now, in the other time trial, Laurent Jalabert beat him, but I'm wondering if he can do it this time as he comes towards the end of the Tour. And this rider, all he has to do is stay in touch.
Has to ride a good time trial, though, to make sure he can keep his advantage at the top of the leaderboard. Laurent Jalabert not looking as cool as he did in the time trial that he won, and this one a little longer at 45 kilometres. But Jalabert using a massive gear. Ivan Gotti, though, Phil, has done a pretty reasonable ride. He's going to keep himself well in the top 10 with this performance. The time that he's looking at the moment is the 7th best time by Gonzalez. That's 55 minutes and 13 seconds. I think he'll just make it inside that.
Well, he's going to have to go some because time is running out for him. But yes, a big sprint to the line might just about do it for Ivan Gotti as he comes off the bend. You can see the finishing line, but it's an awful long way when you're counting seconds. And a good sprint, and he gets it by a single second. He's 7th at the moment. Just to remind you that Salvadelli lies 2nd overall in the race. We'll see him shortly. 2 minutes 5 seconds off the pace. Jalabert here is 2 minutes 6 seconds behind Pantani.
Jalabert trying to pull himself up into the top 3 in this year's Giro d'Italia. I think he's got ambitions over the last couple of weeks because he's seen he's been able to rival some of the top men. He's going to come in now, Phil, with the best time so far, but it's going to be pretty close. In fact, it's just by 1 second. In fact, he's got second.
He's got second at 53.36, Laurent Jalabert. And that's not good for him, really, because he would have expected to come in with the first best time at that point. Here is Salvadelli, though, the revelation of this Giro, if you don't count Pantani. And he's looking for a good time now because he's 2 minutes and 5 seconds off the Maglia Rosa. One thing's for sure, Paul, he's not going to get caught by the man in pink.
In fact, he's done an incredible ride here. Yeah. Look at that. He's going to go outside the time of Gonchar, but he's going to go a lot better than Laurent Jalabert. He has done certainly the time trial of his life. Now, he's going to have to wait to see just exactly what Marco Pantani's done, because I think he will take some time back on Pantani today. That was a great ride. Now it's Pantani to come up, and he has slipped away.
He certainly has, and he's going to take some big time out of Marco Pantani in this time trial. Salvadelli is in with 53 minutes and 10 seconds. Already it's 54 and 20 and counting here for Pantani. He is conceding the best part of 90 seconds of his lead here. As he comes up, he'll just squeeze into the 7th best finisher. There's the winner, though, Sergei Gonchar. He's done it before. He's previously won a stage in the time trials in the Giro d'Italia. But look at this now. Salvadelli has come from 2:05 to 44 seconds off the pink jersey of Marco Pantani. This race isn't over yet. Well, we know the answer very soon now with the tough days which are upon the riders, the survivors of this year's Giro d'Italia. Look at these peaks now as they make their way towards the mountaintop finish at the Alpe di Pampiago. 166 kilometres and 129 riders still surviving. These are the high mountains of northern Italy now, and this certainly the last playground for the riders this year.
That's the difficult thing about the Giro d'Italia, because there certainly is a major sting in the tail with these big mountain passes, and you can almost see Milano on the horizon. This is Hernan Buenajora, the Colombian rider on Vitaligo Seguros. He's tried to blow the race to pieces on this very difficult stage. 3 big mountain passes the riders have to go over this afternoon, and I tell you one thing, this is the day when the big climbers have to certainly come out and play.
Well, at least the climbers aren't afraid of having a go at Marco Pantani and seeing if they can slip him as the field now begins to spread out. There's Pantani down there riding 4th wheel at the moment, and his challengers are all around him here now, and the last chance for some of the climbers who should really have enjoyed this Giro d'Italia to make final progress up the overall classification.
Marco Pantani in 4th position there in the pink jersey will be a little surprised at how much time he lost in the time trial yesterday to Paolo Savoldelli. They're 3 kilometers from the summit of the second climb of the day, and you can see already there's been a major sort out in this year's Giro d'Italia. But Marco Pantani is not having any problems at all. He's riding very comfortably at the front of the pack, and he's still got 1 or 2 very good teammates alongside him setting the pace on the front of this group now, and this is the day that really something is going to have to happen.
Just 15 riders left in this group right now as they try to set the pace together. And also, Paul, one of the sensations so far has been Gilberto Simoni of the Milan team, and he's right in this group again today.
He's riding stronger and stronger as this Giro has gone on. Every year when you come to a major stage race, you always find some revelation. I have to say this year Simoni has to be the revelation. Sitting on the back of that leading group of 15, in fact, was one of Marco Pantani's teammates, Marco Velo. Another pretty smart name to have if you're a bike rider, but at the moment he's suffering quite a lot. He did an awful lot of work on the first mountain slope, and what he's hoping at the moment is he can survive over this mountain to help Marco Pantani on the approach to the final climb of the day.
Well, Pantani, like the other riders in this break, know all about the finish today, so there's no reason to rush. He's having a little word with that spectator, and I shouldn't think it'll be too polite either, because it is very annoying when spectators run alongside the riders like this, as the pace continues to be made by Mercatoni Uno.
Stefano Garzelli is the man on the front doing all of the work for Marco Pantani, a good rider in his own right. There in 3rd position there you get a chance to glimpse Gilberto Simoni. He's in the grey and black jersey of the Milan squad there. Right behind him is Marco Pantani, and not very far away either is Ivan Gotti. Still in this group is Paolo Savoldelli. After that magnificent performance yesterday, he dragged himself up a lot closer to Marco Pantani in the overall rankings, and in the back of his mind today he'll be wondering if there's any chance that he can outwit the climbing pirate.
Well, steady progress being made, and remember that Pantani is holding on to a reasonably comfortable lead overall, except of course on Salvadelli, who is right here in this group. And now to see Laurent Jalabert riding in that mauve jersey, by the way. He's now the new leader of the race on points, and Mario Cipollini, by the way, is no longer with us in the Tour. He hasn't made it again to Milan.
I think Mario Cipollini's got his mountainitis again. He really doesn't like to drag his body over these big mountain passes. He will go away from the Tour of Italy now and try and concentrate on the Tour de France later in the season, another 3-week stage race, but he's yet to finish throughout his illustrious career. He is an incredible man for the first 10 days or so of these big 3-week stage races, but he's just not able to drag his body over the mountains. I don't think he wants to suffer, and he thinks just about glory on the flat stages to begin with.
No panic yet for Mercatoni Uno as Garzelli sets the pace, as we look down now at the man who's rising up in this year's Giro, and that is Gilberto Simoni. 1 win only in his career, and that came in '97 when he won a stage of the Tour of Trentino, and yet here he is now really within striking distance of Pantani. He has climbed so well in these mountains this year.
He's approaching the prime age for a professional bike rider as well. He's 27 years of age. He turns 28, in fact, in the month of August. But for the moment, he's not thinking about birthdays. He's thinking about staying in contact with this leading group of riders in the Giro d'Italia. On the second big climb of the stage, and the summit is more than 2,000 meters in altitude. And for the moment, nobody really wants to go out and put the hammer down and attack Marco Pantani.
Well, let's have a look at the man we've almost forgotten about, but they're all going to see him now, as well as Buenajora gets brought back into the group. He looks over his shoulder there just to check out how many riders are picking him up on this little flat stretch of road here, and it's not many.
Certainly not many at all. The man on the front here is Ermanno Brignoli, followed up by Stefano Garzelli and Marco Pantani, who's looking pretty comfortable now in his pink jersey. Moving up behind him, Ivan Gotti. And Gotti certainly must be thinking about launching an attack on the final climb. of the day today, and Richard Virenque would certainly like to get himself a victory at the top of the mountains. But this is a great performance today, Phil, by the leader of the points competition, the most consistent rider throughout the Giro d'Italia so far. Laurent Jalabert now fresh in the new Cyclamina jersey that he's got on his shoulders. And I have to say, Jalabert is looking like a serious contender for a top 3 position here.
Well, when you think he only took a late decision to come into the Giro d'Italia, and what a tour he has had, as we've got 10 kilometres, 10 very tough kilometres now remaining on this stage as we start our battle in the final mountains this week. And Pantani again has got his team to put him in a good position. He's riding on the wheels. In fact, of Borghese now and Garzelli. And just behind Pantani, we've got Ivan Gotti. And Gotti is going to have to try and hit him. In fact, it's Marco Velo who's leading at the moment. And Gotti is going to have to try and hit him somewhere along this road. I'm not so sure. Excuse the pun, he's got it.
One of Marco Pantani's teammates going out at the back there, Simone Borghese. He'd done a very good job throughout the day, and he's now been left behind by the rest of the group. And I have to say, Phil, I do think that Laurent Jalabert decided to come to the Giro d'Italia after a very good performance this year at the Tour of Romandy, where not only did he take the overall win, but he won the 2 time trial stages and a couple of stages as well to boot. So he's riding very well, and I think that was when he thought, I think I'll go over to the Giro d'Italia, take a break and not do the Tour de France, and then build myself up again to the end of the season to be competitive for the Tour of Spain. But this group, in fact, has swelled over the last few moments as several riders have managed to drag themselves back up into the group here of Marco Pantani. And you can see all of the Mercatone Uno riders now under serious pressure. They've been controlling this race basically since the very first week of the Giro, and now they're starting to just survive over these last few days. The only man remaining here with Marco Pantani on the front is in fact the man who himself was the winner last year of the Tour of Switzerland, Stefano Garzelli.
Well, Garzelli's done this. Start of this climb here reminds me very much of the slopes of Alpe d'Huez. It is actually very, very steep now, and these riders settling into a tempo. Jalabert looks as though he's settling out of the tempo. He takes a look across and he says a few words there to Richard Virenque, and they slowly slip away. Now Virenque also may be dropping away here. 6 kilometres to climb to the summit, and still Simone is right there, number 27. He chooses the right wheel to watch as well as we go behind now to see the 2 Frenchmen having a chat, and I think losing a little bit of ground.
Jalabert probably thinking to himself, well, I'm not doing too badly if I'm staying alongside Virenque, because he's supposed to be a good climber. But for these 2 riders now, they're going to try and ride to the summit of this climb and conserve as much of their time advantage as they can, because the big problem with these 2 guys is they're going to lose time on Marco Pantani as we get closer to the summit of the climb. And I felt that this was going to be a good day for Laurent Jalabert. He looked pretty smart before, and he was hoping to try and keep himself in a 3rd place position here at the Giro d'Italia. But the big climbers now, Phil, are starting to move forward, and still Marco Pantani has got Garzelli on the front of that group, keeping the tempo high.
Well, these 2 riders here are separated by 15 minutes in the overall classification in the favour of Jalabert, but he's a rider who does know his limitations. He's not going to attempt to match Pantani. He's going to ride this mountain at his own speed, and the mistake that Jimenez has made a number of times in this year's race, he's tried to follow Pantani and has blown immediately, and then he's lost huge time, and Jalabert will not be guilty of that.
Certainly isn't. Jalabert's a very clever rider. He knows just exactly what his limitations are. In fact, you can see him there just off the back of this group. He's now riding very comfortably at his own pace and leaving it up to the climbers to ride their different kind of pace, because the climbers, once they get to a steeper part of this course, they will accelerate and decelerate, and that is not the kind of way that a man like Laurent Jalabert knows how to climb. He can just climb at one steady pace, his own pace, and leaves it up to the climbers to change their rhythm on these climbs.
The Jalabert dropping slowly away, but the kilometres counting off at 5 to go. Still this magnificent piece of work being done by Garzelli at the front, as they're joined now, or well, not joined, it's not Garzelli anymore. In fact, it's Enrico Zaina who's now setting the pace for Mercatone Uno. And these 2, although they initially lost ground, Paul, are hanging on in there and not losing so much now.
Looks to me as if, in fact, he's quite happy to sit here at the moment in 2nd position. Marco Pantani is leaving up to his teammates to do all of the work on the front here. There's a face of concentration, thinking about the job in hand. He's now going into a terrain that is his own. This is very much like the Italian Alpe d'Huez, and that is a place where Marco Pantani likes to excel and play to the crowds. But I tell you one thing, Gilberto Simone is looking very comfortable there in 3rd position. And Ivan Gotti looks like he's suffering. But the 2 French climbers, well, they're out of it for today.
they're out of it, and they're going to try and limit their losses here. Salvadelli is still up there in the group. I haven't spotted him. Ivan Gotti we've seen certainly up there, and I think Roberto Heras, yes, he's here as well. As they continue, a little bit of a move now, and in fact that looks to me as though Heras has just launched an attack, and as easy as you like, Marco Pantani has gone after him.
No problem at all. Pantani was just waiting for somebody to move. He wanted to stay with a teammate for as long as possible, but as soon as there was an acceleration from Heras, he was right onto his wheel. Cameraman losing it a little bit there, but we're back with the action, and Marco Pantani has closed the gap, but that acceleration has blown several riders right off the back. Simone has managed to stay there on the wheel of Marco Pantani, so too has Ivan Gotti. But one man who is missing there, Phil, is Salvadelli. He's really suffering.
Yes, he is, and he's going to have to try and suffer a little bit more here now, because he knows he can take heart from the fact that he's got behind him Laurent Jalabert, but he will not be too happy with the fact that Ivan Gotti is going forward with this move. Heras, who started it, Pantani has countered it, and we were saying how well and composed Gilberto Simoni was looking, but right now he's not looking that way at all, and in fact the gap is opening, and these two are going clear.
Well, Marco Pantani came to the front, decided to accelerate and immediately put Ivan Gotti into difficulty. But in fact, it is Simoni who's responding. He's come around Gotti, the former winner of the Giro d'Italia, and he now is trying to pull himself up to Marco Pantani. He really is a great revelation in this year's Giro d'Italia, and the Italians have got another man they can look forward to being a big contender for the overall win of this three-week race. But this is the man that they all love, Il Pirata, because once he gets to the mountains in his own domain, he really likes to fly, and he's just cracked Heras now.
Well, Heras is trying to hold him in his sights, but once you let this man go clear, I don't think anybody can hold him anywhere. Marco Pantani now trying to win his third stage of the Giro d'Italia this year. And that is winning in the grand style of the great winners of any major tour. When you can win stages, then you really are the best man in the race. And he's going clear now. There's still a little way to climb here. Simone has come up and he's battling it out, but he's going forward. His next target will be Heras. That was the actual moment of the pressure being applied by Marco Pantani. And now they're saying it's 20 seconds to Paolo Salvadelli. So he also is struggling on the climb.
All of these riders struggling to follow in the wake of Marco Pantani. Pantani wearing number one as the winner of last year's Giro d'Italia in an area where he loves to excel. That's on these mountain slopes. And again, he's out of the saddle accelerating, trying to keep the pace as high as possible, because today what he wants to do is build himself a big buffer between himself and everybody else in the overall standings of this year's Giro d'Italia. He was surprised to lose so much time yesterday to Salvadelli. Salvadelli closing in to just outside 40 seconds. And what Marco Pantani wants to do at the end of this three-week Giro is really put the hammer on the table and say, look guys, I'm the best man here, and this is how I can do it in the mountains.
Well, this is why he wanted this tour. This is why he said it was a course designed for him. He's watched every move everybody's made. He's lived with them over 2 weeks now, making sure they didn't gain much time on him. But now, in the mountains here, this is his domain, and he's going to put his advantage home. There's still a couple of tough days to come as well before we run down onto the streets of Milano. And now Salvadelli, 20 seconds back, Laurent Jalabert. A miraculous piece of riding, really, by Jalabert, still only 40 seconds back.
But absolute chaos in front of Marco Pantani. All of those cameramen trying to get in there and get a shot. The race referees here just are not as strict as they are at the Tour de France, because it is absolute pandemonium in front of Marco Pantani. And I really feel that those guys are hindering his advance.
Well, 3 kilometres to go. That's the Italian temperament, you see. They all want to get in on the action and shout a few words of encouragement to their hero Pantani on the climb. 2.5 kilometres from the summit now. Give us my sponge back, thank you very much. As he now continues to make his climb up here and grows over the rest. The clock on the right is counting to the second rider on the road. I don't quite know where the marker has started, but I think at the 3 kilometre banner.
That will give us a chance to know just exactly where Roberto Heras is. Salvadelli is trying to recover and get himself back into the bike race, but he too now is losing a bit of serious time. Jalabert not too worried. All he wants to do is get his body to the top of this mountain. This is now Ivan Gotti, who's trying to stay in contact with Gilberto Simoni, and there was Heras. So these guys now a long way behind Marco Pantani on the road.
Well, it's we're coming up to that 3 kilometre banner, and it looks as though the clock is being timed here. And this was one of the early attackers, Bueno Hora, 1:04. So he's pulling out a gap now of a minute over most of the riders, because the others are just in front there. So even with such a short way to go, Paul, he could get himself a 2-minute win here.
He's blowing everybody away, and he's not looking very easy on the machine as we normally see him go up some mountains, but the most important thing is he is getting big time advantage over the rest of the field. He's going up there as fast as he can. He sits down for a short while, then when he feels he's not going fast enough, he gets out of the saddle to accelerate again. The chasing group of 3 riders is Gotti, Simone and Heras, but they are doing nothing at all to pull back the flying man up at the front.
Well, they can't. They are absolutely on the limit. Gotti, again, another rider for his courage. You must congratulate him. But this rider just keeps on sprinting up these mountains as fast as his little legs will carry them. And the cameramen insist on taking the photographs just in case they get the one that will look nice in the next day's newspapers. But there's no doubt now, because in fact the group containing Jalabert is spread right down the mountain. He is now looking at minutes gained here as he approaches the finish.
A remarkable performance. He used his team sensibly. He kept with them on the second climb of the day, which climbed to over 2,000 meters, and then he decided this was the point where he needed to attack. He doesn't need to attack too far from the finish because he was in the front of the race anyway. What he wants to do is try and gain 1 or 1.5 minutes on the rest of his rivals in this year's Giro, which is why he can afford to wait until the final climb of the day, because he is so rapid on these final slopes. 2 kilometers left to go to the finish, and I always worry about these spectators when they get so close to a man leading a race like this, because it is such a dangerous thing to do. All they have to do is touch his shoulder and he's on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely right. But I wasn't sure whether he just waved to that spectator. He might have recognised a friend in the group there, because he's now inside 2 kilometres to go. With every turn of these pedals, he is gaining time and making the Giro d'Italia his here, because they are falling back. You can see the difference in speed when we see those split pictures. This rider now is accelerating away from everybody, and I think the next time check is going to be over a minute to the second man on the road. We're back to that second group here at the moment. Oh no, it's not quite that far, Paul. They'll stop it on the 2K to go. About 45 seconds, they're saying.
Well, these guys have recovered somewhat. It looked to me as if they were going a lot slower than Marco Pantani, and this is the group of Paolo Salvadelli out on the road. He's the man losing big time. 1 minute 44 seconds in that group. With him is Daniel Clavero, the Italian leader, the Spanish leader of the Vitaligo Seguros team. But for the moment, the important thing is Marco Pantani is doing what he needs to do in the Giro d'Italia. Towards the end, he's opening up big gaps over the rest of the field.
Well, if that was the gap to Salvadelli, add on at least 2 minutes back to Laurent Jalabert, because that would put him nearly 4 minutes behind this rider now, because he has blown big time in the last few kilometres. Oh, well, they're telling us no, 2.5 minutes to Jalabert, so it's not quite as bad as I thought, but the gap is still opening. 2.5 minutes is a long way in real terms.
Team manager coming up alongside here to let Marco Pantani know just exactly what's going on in the race behind, and in fact I can tell him Marco Pantani is now being chased by Gilberto Simoni, who has in fact dropped Ivan Gotti. Gotti is having a very hard time on the slopes of this climb, and Marco Pantani will now breathe a sigh of relief, because that's what he's been looking for. The Flamme Rouge, 1 kilometre to go, 1,000 metres, and he'll be able to take a very nice earned break.
And it's not long since the road used to go through that tunnel, but now we go round the side of the mountain. It is beginning to level off just a little bit. The clock has started again now, but Marco Pantani, he is gaining time all of the time now. This is the battle behind, and I think you're right, Paul, because Gotti here with Heras, and we are missing one Gilberto Simoni, who is up the road.
Well, Simoni really is a great revelation. He's ridden magnificently in these mountains. Further back down the slopes, this is the group of Paolo Salvadelli. You can see him in about second or third position there. None of them doing a thing to pull back Marco Pantani, who is in his own terrain, the terrain that he loves so much, that of the really high mountains.
Well, there's no doubt now he's going to take the stage out. Just over 5 hours of cycling in these mountains now. And the question is, by how much is he going to win, and by how much is he going to lead the Giro d'Italia tonight? Because he's being cheered all the way towards the finishing line. He knows once he gets that line, not only will he get his third stage victory of this year's Giro, but he'll be able to sit back and count the seconds down on everybody else who comes in. So Marco Pantani running into the finish, and this will be a sweet victory, because he always loves it when he wins on top of a mountain. He salutes the crowd, and now this is the great moment. You can watch and see what happens. And look at this, Gilberto Simoni is going to come in second place. The clock, well, it's going to be around about a minute by the time he gets to the line, it probably slightly more.
Roberto Heras, he's in fact had a great battle further down the mountain with Ivan Gotti, and he's put Gotti into serious difficulty. But Phil, this has to be a revelation. This man, Gilberto Simoni, is going to finish around about 1 minute behind Marco Pantani, and that is a sincere reference to a man who has come to this Giro without much of a pedigree, and to finish second on a big mountain stage after a big battle like that means to say that this young man is going to come back to the Giro d'Italia next year with a hope of getting into the top 3.
67 seconds is all he conceded. Here's Heras and Ivan Gotti. It was Heras who started the attack at the bottom, and he's going to finish it off with a third place here as he sprints away from Ivan Gotti, himself having done pretty well as a past winner of the Giro. But they're all conceding big time today to Marco Pantani.
See just how quickly the guys want to stop once they come across the finish line. And another rider here who's a big surprise to see so close to the front here is Daniele Di Paolo from the Amica Chips team, but he too is going to lose around about 2 minutes. But this is an amazing stage today of the Giro d'Italia, because the riders have been really put into a situation where they're losing major time on this final climb of the day, and that's all because of the pressure put on the race by Marco Pantani and his team.
Well, Paolo Salvadelli has known what it's like to suffer today, and he's going to have to keep on sprinting forward as we go back to the finish. Sixth place arrival here. It looks like Oscar Camenzin, the world champion. He's not going to be challenged by Roberto Gambelluri as they fight out 6th and 7th. The clock counting down, remember, on Marco Pantani. The next man we should see will be Salvadelli. And Salvadelli is going to be very close to losing, I would think, his second place overall here.
He has to keep riding to the line. He has to make sure that he doesn't lose too much time, because Ivan Gotti is already in. Ivan Gotti started the day in third place. That's 6 for Oscar Camenzin, but the most important thing for the man to come in next is making sure what the time is on that clock, and it's ticking by pretty rapidly. 2:40 has already gone by, but the important thing to him as he comes across the line is the difference between himself and Ivan Gotti.
And he sprinted it home, and that's Axelsen alongside Sevilla of the Kelme team. But this is the rider who has really just about hung on. We'll wait for the final calculation to see if he has kept that second place. Further back by a long way, Laurent Jalabert really cracked big time in the last 5 kilometres, and he's gone out to more than 4 minutes here as he continues to come up to the line. Been a tough day out for poor old Laurent Jalabert today. So there's the result of the stage, and Marco Pantani has increased his overall lead in the Giro d'Italia tonight, and a great ride too. Well, he must be feeling a very happy and confident man now, with the 128 men who are left making their climb up to a finish at 1,522 metres today at the winter resort of Madonna di Campiglio from Predazzo. And the field, not surprisingly, Paul, in no big hurry to meet the rendezvous.
I think after that performance by Marco Pantani yesterday, everybody must be realising that he is the biggest climber in this Giro d'Italia, and he is in great form at the moment. But there is a small group who managed to get off the front, started by Herman Buenahora, the Colombian rider on the Vitaligo Seguro squad, and getting in there as well, Paolo Bettini, the rider from the Mapei squad. He was an early leader of the King of the Mountains competition, but in fact now he's having a hard time holding on to that.
Slip back into his Mapei racing colours there as he continues to climb steadily, and as we go up to the dizzy heights of the Dolomites now, these huge pieces of black granite that abound in northern Italy. And well, it's a centre of the ski industry as well here, but the gaps now are opening. The peloton has dropped back to 2 minutes 13 seconds. Our breakaway group is a minute 48 clear of the intergroup.
There's absolutely no problem for the teammates of Marco Pantani, just setting the pace on the front as we reach the summit of one of these climbs, and a big acceleration coming from Paolo Bettini, trying to get himself plenty of points to get up to the overall leader. The competition at the moment, in fact, is being led by Marco Pantani. Pantani is really riding this race with complete and utter domination. His team all on the front there. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riders from Mercatone Unu setting the pace, and Marco Pantani content really just to sit there and leave them up to do the work. And he must be feeling pretty confident, because today's stage finish again falls into his territory.
Well, it's always nice to see an empty row behind you when you're on the attack. And Paolo Bettini is just saying only one victory as a professional as they now swing away from the climbs, but they're not over yet. These are the easy days, as this is the group now in between trying to reach the leader. And again, containing nobody of real note. Mariano Piccoli is the rider on the far side, rider nearest the camera here, number 12, and that was Daniel De Paoli. from the Italian Amica Chips. Had a good rider in the result yesterday too. 3 minutes 15 seconds back to the Marco Pantani group, and we're 25 kilometres from the finish, but it's a very hard finish.
Paolo Bettini had a very good start to the season working for Michele Bartoli on the Mapei squad, because in fact after working for Bartoli at the recent Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he came away with a 5th place finish himself. A very strong rider, and in fact I reckon he was almost a lot stronger than Bartoli was on that day, but nobody could rival the performance of Frank van den Broeke, and this lead group have allowed him to go clear. Now this is a dangerous move to allow a man like him to go off the front. In the group in fact is Jose Luis Arrieta, and there is a man wearing the King of the Mountains competition jersey for the moment, ahead of the leader Marco Pantani. This is the point where Paolo Bettini was caught by that chase group, and another very good contender for the King of the Mountains in there, Mariano Piccoli, the Lampre rider.
This is Troncar of the Amica Chips team, and this is his teammate coming through, Cocchioli, who's had a pretty good tour. As these riders try to get something out of the race, they're overshadowed by the big teams, of course, and not least by the Banesto, as they continue to try and get something out of this, and it's not a lot out of this tour for Banesto. Hernan Buenohora is the most likely to get away here now.
Cristiano Frattini, another rider in this group from the Liquigas in the green and white jersey. Buenohora moving forward. He's been pretty prominent over the last few mountain stages, and he's the kind of rider who could come up with a surprise victory. Orlando Rodriguez, though, is in serious difficulty for Banesto. He can't take the pace on this incline here, and he's going to have to sit up and wait to get caught by the group containing Marco Pantani. But this today, again, Phil, after that very difficult stage yesterday, proving to be a very difficult race route.
And they're all starting to go backwards here as they start to drop off the back. So this is Cristiano Frattini who's dropping back, and still the relentless pressure about a minute and a half lower down there from Pantani's group as he now starts the long climb of Madonna di Campiglio.
In second place, Buenohora, followed by Arrieta, and there in fact number 91, the reigning Olympic champion, that is Pascal Richard. He's trying to find some kind of form. You see, he's such a clever rider. He finds his way into these moves, but at the moment he hasn't really got the form to come up with a stage win.
Well, this is Riccardo Facconi here. He's the workhorse for the moment on the lower slopes of the climb up to the top of the Madonna, and keeping the pace nice and high. They came onto it about 4 minutes behind that leading group. Well, that was based on Paolo Bettini's time, but they've picked Paolo up now at 10 kilometres for the leaders here. But the pace is such now, the chase is really on behind, and you can see by the pace of these riders here, and Pascal Richard at the back just dangling off it, and then I think they've slowed down dramatically, and there's proof of that, because look at that, Paul, 39 seconds now.
That's unbelievable. A few moments ago it was up to 4 minutes, but these guys have done a tremendous job on the early slopes of this mountain, and they want to set it up again for Marco Pantani. He won't be too worried about the fact that these guys are 40 seconds up the road in front of him, because they've been leading the race for quite a while. An attack here by Pascal Richard, the winner of the Liège-Bastogne-Liège race back in 1996, and the same year he got the right to wear those Olympic rings at Atlanta in 1996 also.
Indeed he did, and there was a bit of a surprise winner on that occasion, having beaten Rolf Sorensen and the British rider Max Chandry to the title. But now he's being joined here by Arrieta, who's also had his moments, some of them not so good as others, as the tempo behind is still being set now, and it's not going to be long before these riders are in the sights of Marco Pantani yet again on a mountain stage. And remember, I would have thought that Pantani would have wanted a reasonably easy day today, as would any of the leaders of this race, because tomorrow is an absolute brute.
Unbelievable. It's almost cruel, the organisation here of the Giro d'Italia, to have 3 big mountain stages, just one finishing one day before the finish in Milan. It really has the ability to turn the Giro d'Italia upside down in the last 4 days of the race. There is the leader on the road, that is Pascal Richard. He's being chased here by Hernan Buenohora, the Vitaligo Seguros rider, but there's a big attack, and that's coming from Jaja himself.
I can't believe that Laurent Jalabert would want to launch an attack at this point. Maybe he feels that Pantani will not react straight away as we look up to the 2 leaders here. Richard joined by Buenohora. Well, they're saying Arrieta, but that is wrong. Arrieta might just be to behind there. And now it looks as though this man has got to the front now. Has he attacked? We need the camera to swing round a little bit. I think he has, Paul. I think he's gone.
Again, we're having a few technical problems with the camera there. That's because of the fact we're going from very bright sunlight into this shaded area. But in fact, it is Marco Pantani who has attacked from the front of that group, and he's going for it. Let's not forget, Pascal Richard is still a little further up the slopes with Hernan Buenahora. That's Gilberto Simoni trying to stay in contact there, but no chance. Marco has flown once again, and the other rider who was with Simoni, in fact, was Ivan Gotti. And you can see through this chaos of motorbikes, he's just leapt across to Pascal Richard and Hernan Buenahora, and he's caught them with no trouble at all.
Now, can they hang on, or dare they even try? Well, yes, Buenahora has realised who it is. He's gone. Pascal Richard is not going to offer any resistance at all. I don't blame him. As we now continue climbing behind the Dolomites Express, because Marco Pantani now just continues to accelerate, and for what I think is the third time in this year's Giro, we are being treated to a man alone on the mountains. At least I think he will be shortly.
He will be shortly, but as you can see by the roll in Hernan Buenahora's body there, he's really pushing himself to the limit to try and stay with Marco Pantani. Pantani in the position we have always seen him in on the mountain slopes, out of the saddle, accelerating, riding as fast as he can, occasionally sitting down to recuperate somewhat, and then once he feels that the pace is not high enough, boom, he gets out of the saddle and accelerates again, which is what he's just done now, because Hernan Buenahora has said goodbye, thank you very much, I'll take a back seat until the top of this climb.
It is amazing how this man can do it. I think everybody knows he's so good that he frightens everybody off his back wheel now. Well, early on this morning, the doping controls have continued, the spot checks in the Giro d'Italia, and this morning in Predazzo, 15 riders were asked to have their blood tested for the hematocrit level of 50%. Everybody has passed, and everybody riding the Tour, so that's good news.
Hernan Buenahora trying to survive the onslaught of that attack from Marco Pantani. Pantani is an incredible rider, but Jaja is as well, because Jalabert there in third or fourth position out on the road today is rivaling many of the big climbers there. He's just gone by Pascal Richard. The advantage Marco Pantani has at the moment is 13 seconds over Hernan Buenahora, and this man holds some incredible records. He holds the record for the fastest ascent of the Alpe d'Huez during the Tour de France, and that is at a time of 37 minutes and 35 seconds. That's almost 3 minutes faster, in fact, than that time that was done by Gert-Jan Tunnisser, the famous Dutch climber.
Well, he's got that little gear rolling yet again, and he's gaining time over everybody. Jalabert using his common sense and knowing he can't go with this man to ride at his own pace. He is still fourth overall in this race. Here he is on the left, but he's 5 minutes and 24 seconds behind this morning. Add on the difference now, he's losing to Marco Pantani.
Great ride there by Simoni, again with the big boys of this year's Giro d'Italia. Marco Pantani, though, Phil, turned professional back in 1992 at the end of the season, actually in September, having won already the amateur version of the Giro d'Italia. He was brought into the Carrera team to look after a certain Claudio Chiappucci at the time. And ever since then, the two riders didn't tend to get on too well, because they have a similar temperament when it comes to the mountains.
This man really has developed into a fantastic bike rider, only the 7th rider ever to do the double last year with the Giro d'Italia and the Tour de France. Pascal Richard now having to look a little bit from afar as the man in pink starts to head up towards the summit now of the Madonna di Capiglio. And still the acceleration is there. He suffers and suffers, but he just keeps on going quicker and quicker. This is another demonstration by Marco as to how to win a stage of the Giro d'Italia in the mountains. He's opened a gap of 25 seconds now, so the gap is opening slowly but very, very surely.
It makes you wonder what he's going to do tomorrow for an encore, because these last 2 days he's been absolutely magnificent, and I have to agree with you, Phil. I reckon tomorrow's stage is even harder than this stage today. Today, really, the riders only had to worry about one major climb, and that's this climb up here to the finish. Hernan Buenahora now in the sights of the chasing group, which contains some of the big names of the Giro d'Italia. Ivan Gotti, followed by Simoni, followed by Laurent Jalabert, who is doing a great ride, because he is not a great climber, but he's sticking with them.
Jalabert is having a good day today, whereas he had a rather shaky one yesterday. As the latest time checks, they're almost on to Buenahora now, and he may as well hang on and wait for them, because he's not going to hold them off at all. This man, though, is now looking to make more big time on the climb here, and he's opening up the gaps, which are now pushing up towards that magical minute yet again. All of the other riders who have been totally powerless to control this man in the mountains are now chasing him home yet again. They must be getting a little bit tired of that. Inside 3 kilometers to go.
Amazing to see on the front of that group of climbers. In fact, it was Laurent Jalabert who was setting the pace there, but this man really is putting in a magnificent performance. He finished third in the Tour de France back in 1997, and that was a great performance, and that was when we started to think that this man on an ideal course, in fact, could go forward and win the race, and that's what he did last year after already taking the Giro d'Italia, and it looks very much as if nobody is going to be a contest to him this year in the Giro d'Italia, and I wonder if he will go forward to the Tour de France, because he says the course is actually not hard enough for him, and he says he may well make the decision not to go to the big race in France in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, he seems to be set in his ways in that race, unfortunately for us, but you never know, he might change his mind. He seems to change his mind with occasion too. 43 seconds, the last time check now, and he's now absolutely scurrying across the plateau here as he races into the last kilometre now. There's nothing going to stop this man from taking his fourth stage win now, and his second in succession. Yet another mountain top has been claimed and conquered by Marco Pantani as he races up towards the finish. And tomorrow, of course, we have the Mortirolo, the big climb, and the Gavia, that huge mountain, which is higher than anything on offer in the Tour de France.
This is absolutely phenomenal. This man is riding like a true champion. This is what cyclists like to see. They like to see the man that is leading the race actually still having the courage to go out and attack. But Laurent Jalabert has done the ride of the day for me. After that, Marco Pantani, because he's there with all of the climbers. But for Pantani, win number 4.
Here he comes, another long day, not really for him because he loves these days in the saddle. Comes over the line and for the second day running can take a seat and watch the seconds build up his overall lead in this Tour. His overall lead after his ride yesterday was 3 minutes and 42 seconds. And I think now we're going to go over the 5-minute mark for Marco Pantani. Jalabert has done well here to tame some good climbers, and so too has Gilberto Simoni again. He's the rider off to our left as they come up towards the line now, and also the other rider here for Kelme is Heras. He's done a good ride, and this is a very select little group that races up towards the line. And the sprint has been started here by, I think it's Heras who started to lead them out. But this man has slipped away unseen by everyone and totally surprises us. Massimo Codol is coming in a clear second place here. And he's 20 minutes behind overall, and he just hangs on, look, as Laurent Jalabert nips in there ahead of Simoni, Gotti, Buenahora and Heras in that order. So Codol did a bit of a ride there today to get second place in the Tour, but only on the stage because Marco Pantani is very much a clear leader of the Tour of Italy now. He now leads, in fact, overall Salvadelli by 5 minutes and 38 seconds, and that is an awful big time gap, Paul.
It's a huge time gap, and also 6 minutes 12 seconds back to Ivan Gotti. That really has been a remarkable performance here. There is confirmation of those time gaps. Jalabert, though, Phil, riding a great Giro d'Italia in 4th place, 6 minutes 39 down.
Well, just watch this now. Marco Pantani takes on the Maglia Rosa yet again. That looks safe, but he also takes on now the Chiclamin coloured jersey as well as the man who leads this race on points. And wait for it, because in a few minutes' time he's going to pull on the green jersey as leader of the King of the Mountains as well. So with 2 days to race and one big mountain stage to come, Marco Pantani has the lead in every competition that matters in this year's Giro d'Italia. Now, if that isn't dominating an event, I don't know what is for Marco Pantani. Well, as we look down on Madonna di Campiglio this morning for the stage of 190 kilometres, the 21st stage of the Giro d'Italia, there is terrible news because Marco Pantani will not be climbing the highest mountains of the Giro d'Italia. He has been disqualified because his hematocrit level is more than the permitted 50%. It was in fact reported as 52%, and as a result, as a safety to all riders, the Cyclist International bar the riders from anything they are taking part in, and that means out of the Giro d'Italia goes Marco Pantani. This is an unbelievable revelation. He has taken these blood tests previously when he has been well within the permitted 50%, but now Pantani, who has won 4 stages of the race and built a lead of 5 minutes overall, will not be allowed to start the race today, which means that Paolo Salvadelli will be the new leader of the Tour, and I'm sure he wouldn't want that. Pantani Pantani has said he's taken nothing, and in fact he is also saying that he is not in any way cheating and he has been unjustly thrown out of the Tour. So I'm sure that story will run and run, but the news is now he's no longer in this race, and that is very, very sad indeed for Marco Pantani. In fact, all of the leading riders were checked this morning, and only Pantani has gone over the 50%. It's now put Salvadelli as the leader of the Tour by 34 seconds. In fact, the top three now are pretty close together. This is the team doctor of Mercatoni Uno, and saying that it's never happened to Marco Pantani before. And everybody very surprised, and Pantani himself is saying he has done absolutely nothing wrong. This was the actual piece of paper, and this is what Pantani had to say to the people outside of his hotel before leaving the race. And I think everybody's sorry to see him go, but we'll have to see what happens as the months unfold over that situation. The race itself was in no hurry to find a new leader. The Maglia Rosa now not being worn by Paolo Salvadelli. He's refused to wear it as the race goes on and the attacks continue on these massive high climbs. This is Kepi Gonzalez on the move.
This is a very difficult climb here. The riders heading up through the Gavia, and then they're going to finish after that with the very difficult Mozzarolo. But here is the Cima Coppi, the highest point of the Giro d'Italia, and I have to say Kepi Gonzalez is certainly trying to rip one of the biggest mountain stages of this year's Giro d'Italia. If we were in Spain, they would certainly call this, Phil, the Etapa Reina, the queen of stages, because that's certainly what it is. It is so difficult to drag your body over these climbs, especially when you think that the finish of the Giro is just tomorrow.
Huge applause for Kepi over the top, 2,621 metres, which is some 500 metres higher than the Col de Tourmalet in the Tour de France. And he's gone over the top first, and the action flat on. And the thing is now, Paul, without Marco Pantani, Gotti, Salvadelli, Simoni, these are all the men who could win this Tour de France, and of course Laurent Jalabert.
Well, Laurent Jalabert, in fact, is lying in third place overall after the withdrawal of Marco Pantani this morning. Salvadelli's advantage is just 34 seconds ahead of Gotti. There's a crash at the top. In fact, that is Gotti who's gone down there. He was trying to get a raincoat from one of the soigneurs at the side of the road there, and in fact, he just got it caught in his handlebars, so that'll rattle him.
And Jerez was also in trouble there. Well, there's a lot of panic in the race at the moment. We're going up to the leaders here of Gonzalez, Buenahora and Gentili. A couple of new names there. Buenahora was the sort of man we would expect to see on the attack, because this is now the chase group at a minute 24. And Fagnini has also got up there now, so this is the leading group.
That's Gentili there, the Cantina Tollo rider. That's Buenahora sitting on the back. So this is a pretty serious move now. And the next climb of the day is certainly going to be the decisive one, the Mozzarolo. I reckon it has to be the toughest climb in the world of professional cycling. It's a lot harder, I think, than a Gavia, which is even a taller climb. But certainly the roads up the Mozzarolo are really very difficult. All the major leaders are still here. There's Jalabert wearing the points jersey. But these four leaders have certainly stolen a march over the rest of the main field here, Phil, and they're going to get a major shock, though, when they get to the Mozzarolo, because that is some climb. Well,
they're not even going to get there ahead of the race, I don't think. This is the scene at the top of the climb, an absolutely massive cloud here. There was concern that the supporters of Pantani would try to stop the race going over the pass, but so far there has been no problem at all. But you can imagine the amount of disappointment that's around the Giro right now.
Gotti now has decided to go for the big attack. He knows now this is a big chance for him, and at the back of the race there are certainly one or two riders in serious difficulty. Wearing number 63 is the man who was very good a few days ago on the mountaintop finish, Massimo Codol. He was second behind Marco Pantani at the end of the 20th stage of the Giro, and he's trying to keep himself in this bike race. Laurent Jalabert with the points jersey on his shoulders, Phil, he's having a hard time on this climb. But you can see the way that Jalabert is pedaling, just how steep this climb is. The camera is very deceiving.
Well, Gotti is now looking for overall victory, don't forget, in the Giro d'Italia as he tries to go clear. He's joined up here. Well, this is interesting. Simoni has come and he's got alongside Jerez. So the climbers are trying to get it together. A very narrow climb this. You are very quickly out of sight of the pursuers.
This is a tortuous climb, very narrow roads. The surface is very difficult. There's no rolling at all. In fact, it feels almost as if you're stuck to the road at many times. And even once you get over the top, the danger is not over, because it is a very tricky descent off the side of this mountain down to the bottom. And there will be one or two riders who will be looking at biting the dirt there, because it is one of the most dangerous descents I've seen in recent years.
And there's an awful lot of legs cracking here, and not least that of Laurent Jalabert, who was given back a chance to win this race, but not on a mountain like this, Paul.
Interesting to see Sergei Gonchar was the rider from Vinny Calderolo there with Laurent Jalabert, so he's putting in a great performance here on the slopes of the Modica. There you can see, in fact, that is Salvadelli as well. He too is in serious difficulty. He should be right up there, in fact, with the leaders of the race, because he is the man who currently is the leader of the race on the road.
Maybe nobody wants to win the Tour in this fashion, because Salvadelli is dropping back there as the group continues. Gotti is now making himself the #1 favourite, but if you think of him over these last 3 weeks, you know, he has always been there or thereabouts. Here is Paolo Salvadelli dropping back a little bit here, and also struggling now, not wearing the pink jersey. He refused to put it on this morning. Richard Virenque is the rider just behind him, and now the gaps are coming. 40 seconds between Gotti and Jalabert.
The third man in this small group here is the world champion Oscar Kamenzin, but that's somewhat of a tradition in the sport of professional cycling. Salvadelli obviously doesn't want to put on the pink jersey today because he feels that it's been given to him by default, and a very courageous move by him, because it would be a great moment for any Italian rider to put the pink jersey on his shoulders, but I feel that he didn't feel this morning as if it was his by right, and he would rather put it on this afternoon when he gets to the finish of this stage. His current standings, though, 34 seconds ahead of Ivan Gotti, but he's losing a certain amount of that on the slopes of the climb here, Phil.
I think he's lost it all as we look down here, and it was 1 minute and 1 second for Jalabert of Salvadelli as well, and he is just about hanging on to Salvadelli at the moment. Yes, that situation, not pulling on the leader's jersey, it reminds me of 1980 in Pau, when Bernard Hinault announced his retirement from the Tour de France as race leader with a knee problem. The next day, Joop Zoetemelk refused to pull on the jersey of race leader, but he did the next day when he was still the leader, and he went on to win that Tour.
Ivan Gotti pedaling very urgently here. This, in fact, is one of the riders behind who was in the group there, and he absolutely cracked. It's one of the Banesto riders, and he just wasn't able to go on. It's Miguel Angel Peña. He was with the leading group, but excuse me, when you go on this climb.
Well, I mean, and you've still got to get to the top, and it is an awful long way, because it's a shame in many ways, but we've never yet worked out how we can actually portray through a television screen just how steep these roads really are, and this one is the toughest of them all, and Gotti is now seeing the chance here to pounce. Can you imagine what Pantani might have done on this climb? We can only imagine now.
Can only imagine that he would have blown away the complete feel of the Giro d'Italia, and now I would think he's probably not even at home with the television on, because he was taken away from the hotel in absolute tears, a broken man, and I wonder at this point in time, Phil, whether he will ever come back to the sport of professional cycling again.
Well, he's left saying he never will. Let's hope that whatever the reason for his disqualification, nobody is saying he's taken EPO, which is what the suspicions are. They're just saying that he is unsafe, in the opinion of the doctors, to ride while his hematocrit level is more than 50%. And he was the only rider, and he was 2% over the top. And that is a big increase, one has to say.
A tough day for Paolo Salvadelli. This is just one final climb, and then on the horizon you can see the finish of the Giro d'Italia. He's trying to pull himself up to those cars, because he knows in front of those cars there will be a group of riders who he can get together with and try and survive, because at the front of the race, Phil, there's major pressure being put on by Ivan Gotti. Gotti has had a very strange career, because a couple of years ago in 1997 he was the winner of the Giro d'Italia, and then he's come back as a favourite for the Giro again last year and for the Tour de France, but he's never come up with a performance, and today he's seen an opportunity to get himself another win in the Giro, and he's putting the hammer down. He doesn't even care about the fact he's got two other riders with him. All he cares about is getting as much time as possible over Paolo Salvadelli.
Well, he's obviously, if he's going to win the Giro now, he wants to prove that he isn't just a second best man to somebody like Marco Pantani, but the rightful owner of the final pink jersey in Milano tomorrow. When he won it in 97, he beat Pavel Tonkov, who this year is saving himself for the Tour de France. Tonkov has always ridden well in this race. He won it in 96 when he was the second Russian rider to do that. He finished second the past 2 years, and funnily enough, Giuseppe Guerini has finished third the past 2 years.
Laurent Jalabert wearing the points jersey as the most consistent rider throughout this year's Giro d'Italia, trying to keep himself in the top three. He couldn't have hoped for a podium position before the start of the Tour, but I think he got himself some serious ambitions, and today he's just trying to keep his hand on there. He's not too happy with these people putting water on him, because in fact what happened there, the guy put the bottle on the back of Jalabert's neck, and he was actually slowing him down a little bit as well.
Well, you know, it's cold water too, no doubt. As Jalabert can concentrate on the climb here, the gaps are open. You know, Salvadelli is the one losing out right now, 2:19 behind Ivan Gotti. So Ivan Gotti is now the leader of the Tour, well and truly.
This has to be a question of psychological pressure, because normally he should be able to stay with Laurent Jalabert on a climb like this, or even ride in front of him. Hopefully he will recover and pull himself back into the bike race, but the situation and these time gaps at the moment mean that in fact Ivan Gotti is the new leader of the Giro d'Italia on the road. And for company, he's got with him Roberto Heras, the Kelme rider in the green shorts there, and the big revelation for me this year, Gilberto Simoni.
But you know, there's still a little way to go, and Pantani was checked at 7:30 this morning, and so rumour would have begun to circulate probably around 8:30 as the riders made ready for the start. We're looking here at Niklas Axelsson, who is still having a very good tour here. He's a Swedish rider on the Navigare team. As we also now look here at the other riders on the climb, and this is Paolo Salvadelli again losing ground and being detached. The gap between Gotti and the world champion Cameron Zind is now a minute 50.
Helping hand from one of the Italian supporters there. They obviously want this man to win the Giro d'Italia, but what that push has actually done is brought him back into contact with Richard Virenque. Virenque at the moment trying to survive as well on the slopes of this climb, but he realises that if he can have Salvadelli with him, they do have a chance of working together and getting back into that group. But the Tifosi on this climb of the Motirolo really going absolutely balmy.
Unbelievable. I don't know if you saw the blow-up dolls on the side there. And this man knows Gilberto Simoni because he's a part of his fan club as he runs alongside him there to give him a few shouts. I have to say that Simoni has ridden absolutely brilliantly in this race, and now of course if Pantani gone, he has a real chance of a top 3 finish in Milan.
That withdrawal of Marco Pantani this morning for failing the health check certainly has turned the overall standings of this Giro d'Italia right upside down. But these three men at the front are the ones taking the bull by the horns. They are absolutely blowing the rest of the field away today. Gotti, Simoni and Heras, these three men are looking to put in one of the magnificent performances of this year's Giro d'Italia, because to me this is the most difficult stage with just one day to go before we go into Milano.
The Battle of the Mortirolo Pass. It is a real brute of a climb. These three riders are under pressure, but nobody is helping at all. Ivan Gotti, the winner 2 years ago, he is setting all of the pace here, and he wants to be the leader of the Tour tonight, and he's going to be there if he has any say in it whatsoever. Number 52 there, Heras, he's not going to get that close because he's lost too much time on the road already. And Gilberto Simoni, well, he's going to have to try and just limit and see if he can get a podium place now. It depends where Salvadelli is right now.
Salvadelli is losing major time in today's stage of the Giro d'Italia. 21 stages have been covered so far, and this certainly has to be the most difficult. Ivan Gotti has really been close to fame on so many occasions throughout his career, Phil, because back in 1995 he finished 5th overall in the Tour de France, and people then thought this man could be a rider for the 3-week stage races, the big Grand Tours as they call them. And in fact, in that Tour de France in 95, he had the opportunity to wear the yellow jersey for just one day, and in fact it was his teammate Bjarne Riis who took it off him on a strange timing error when we went into Charleroi. And looking back at the photo finishes there, I'm surprised in fact that the judges actually gave that 1 second time difference.
They said he was 2 meters behind the next man, and therefore he was docked, I think it was a second or so. And the result of that, the yellow jersey did change hands, and Gotti lost it to Bjarne Riis. That's absolutely right. But now Gotti himself is a pretty star rider. He's not a lucky leader of the, and there's the plaque to prove it, not a lucky leader of the Tour. He stayed in contention throughout, and today he's been absolutely magnificent, attacking all of the way from a long way out, and he's put his main rivals in difficulty. The one he hasn't yet got to his knees is the rider at the back here, Gilberto Simoni, because he is surviving right alongside him.
Well, if that would looked a little bit close there, that spectator got in somewhat dangerously in the corner there. These Tifosi, they absolutely go bonkers when it comes to this climb up here. They're absolutely out of their minds with enthusiasm. This is the Simoni fan club here. They can't believe that their man Gilberto is right at the front of the Giro d'Italia today. He's there in the Balan jersey in 3rd position in this leading group of riders, and I don't think he'd be too happy with having his 2 fans there up alongside him, because he's been riding, let's not forget, for almost 200 kilometers of today's stage, and it really is difficult when you've got people running up alongside you. It tends to really demoralize you.
Well, this is an amazing bit of competition here, but the crowd are at their best. It's in lovely warm sunshine, and despite the fact that Pantani is no longer here, this crowd is still full of enthusiasm for the race. This three-man break seems to be shaping the destiny of the win with 1 kilometre to go, and that must be a very welcome sign on this mountain of the Mortirolo. 1 kilometre to go to the summit, and then Gotti can try and make a run for it.
We have to make a run for it on the descent, and you can be sure he'll make lots and lots of risks on the descent to try and make sure he keeps as much of that advantage as possible over the chasing group. There's the confirmation. The Maglia Rosa is 2 minutes 45 seconds behind, so it's firmly now on the shoulders of Ivan Gotti, but we've still got a pretty fair ride to go to the finish, so he will have to go down this mountain as fast as he can. Confirmation that the new pink jersey on the road is Ivan Gotti, and this young man, Niklas Axelsson from the Navigari team, is doing a very good ride out on the course because he is currently in 4th position on the road. Laurent Jalabert too is doing a great ride, Phil.
Well, he is, and this man never stops. Just look at that picture from the helicopter. There are thousands and thousands of tifosi here looking at the riders in the Tour of Italy. I know they probably came here to see Marco Pantani because they wouldn't have known, and there it is, the Club Magico Pantani. Well, how sad they must feel today because the man in pink is already on his way home. But the riders who are leading the Giro d'Italia today, led by Ivan Gotti, the new leader of the Tour now, make the final turns before they go over the top of the Mortirolo climb. The descent is a highly dangerous one, and they're going to have to take care on the way down.
In fact, the man on the front, Ivan Gotti, will remember this climb, casting his mind back to the year that he won the Giro d'Italia back in 1997, because he rode over this climb wearing the pink jersey with just a couple of days to go to Paris, to Milano. But now further down the slopes, Niklas Axelsson is doing a great ride, and still Laurent Jalabert is riding ahead of the man who is currently, well, was the start this morning, the leader of the Giro d'Italia. So Jalabert doing a fine ride, and he may well do well enough to hold on to his 3rd place in the standings.
And that would be a podium place in Milano for him, and that would be an absolutely superb result for Laurent Jalabert because he is riding his own race a little bit lower down the slopes at around about 2.5 minutes, I think. Here we go, up towards the top. Salvadelli gets the support, but he's still to come, I'm afraid. It looks as though Gotti is going to find his way through. These are almost being brought to a standstill here by the people and the motorbikes. I've really no idea why the motorbikes are allowed to stay quite as close as this at the top of a pass.
Unbelievable. The fact is as well, there's a huge crowd turned out, and there's not enough room for motorbikes and for the bike riders. They should get out of the way and give the bike riders a clean crack at racing up this mountain. It's hard enough riding up the mountain and not without having to contend with the motorbikes. Confirmation of the gaps: 2:10 to Jalabert, 2:45 still back to Paolo Salvadelli.
And so there is the face of Ivan Gotti now as Roberto Heras follows him, and behind him we have Gilberto Simoni. The first three, I've never seen a crowd like this. We get it very rarely on Alpe d'Huez, but this is absolutely enormous here. Such is the popularity of the sport at the moment in Italy, although the business of Pantani is going to hit it hard, I think. Up towards the top of the climb, and nobody's going to challenge now Ivan Gotti because he's led all the way up the Mortirolo. So it's first Gotti, second Heras, and third Simoni. I won't say it's all downhill from here, but they really must be careful.
They really must be careful. This is a pretty tricky descent. You see the riders now picking up bits of newspaper from the spectators at the side of the road. That is because, although it looks like a pretty nice day, the temperature at the top of this climb is not very high at all. It's only 12 degrees Celsius as Niklas Axelsson picks his way up through this unbelievable crowd. You very rarely get a crowd bigger than this on a climb like the Mortirolo. It really is magnificent to see the Italians turning out to see what they were expecting to be a victory parade for Marco Pantani. They've been robbed of that, but today it's another Italian who's climbing himself up towards the top of the leaderboard, and almost certainly by the end of today is going to be the new leader of the Giro d'Italia. And the way he's riding, Phil, I'm pretty certain it's going to go to Gotti because I can't see Salvadelli recovering.
Well, I would agree, but you know, you never know because stranger things happen, and hats off to Niklas Axelsson here of Sweden. He has done an extremely good ride today, and well, what a promise he is for the future. Those long, thin legs can obviously climb mountains. Now he sprints for the top. He's going to be the 4th man over the top of the steepest climb, the Mortirolo, for Niklas Axelsson of Sweden. And there the gap is around 1:20. The clock has stopped. It continues now as we go further down the mountain.
Coming down, this is Massimo Codol, the rider who was second the other day. He's right up at the front.
He's done it again.
A very good race in the mountains. I hadn't heard about this rider very much before the start of the Giro d'Italia, but over the last couple of days he's confirmed that he too is going to be a great man for the mountains, for the Italians. He heads up to the top here, but look at the time gaps. Laurent Jalabert there just in the distance has done a pretty good ride to stay in contact here with the rest of the group. 2 minutes and 18 seconds is the deficit for these two chasers, and Jalabert not too far behind.
And down below us, the twists and turns of the descent as the leaders begin what is a very rapid descent here. Camazin continues his way up towards the summit in another select little group with Gonchar. And the crowd here, well, there's virtually no road now, is there? The crowd just leaning into the riders as the cars just about open it up.
Crowd are going absolutely mad here. They must realize the next man on the road has got to be Paolo Salvadelli. At one time he was riding alongside the world champion from Switzerland, Oscar Camenzin. So the next man up must be the man who started this morning as the leader of the Giro d'Italia. And here he is, Paolo Salvadelli, alongside him Richard Virenque. But it's going to be a very long chase for him because look at the time gap, Phil.
Oh dear me, 3 minutes 3 seconds as he comes up the top. We go further down now on the descent with Laurent Jalabert. And now up to the leaders, that's Heras going round. He's a bit of a shaky descender, Paul, so they must watch following him down.
Taking a few risks. This is a tricky descent, you can see here. It is definitely one of the technical descents of the Giro d'Italia this year, but they are all keeping very close together. The leading group of 3 riders by now will have had confirmation of the time gaps behind, and that will make the man in second position, Ivan Gotti, very happy because he'll realise now he's got a serious crack at getting the Giro d'Italia for the second time in his career.
From the noise of... Oh, there's been a crash, and that is Axelsson. Nicholas Axelsson, it looks as though he's hit his head there, but he's going to get on with it if he can.
Well,
he's obviously overshot that bend.
Unbelievable. The team car was there pretty quickly, Phil, but he looks a little bit dazed. In fact, he's up on his machine, he's riding off, but he doesn't look 100%.
No, he looks a little bit shaken there because I think he fell pretty badly. Unfortunately, we didn't quite catch the fall. And this is the other man. This is Camazin gone down, and also with him is Codol. So they have both fallen in a strange place on the straight road here.
Well, that's amazing. These guys were taking a lot of risks trying to get themselves back into the bike race, but you know, Codol has stayed down on the ground. He's holding his shoulder. Yeah. Let's hope it isn't that major problem that a lot of cyclists suffer from, a broken collarbone, but at least he's up and he's conscious. But in the meantime, the 3 riders at the front of the race have managed to stay upright, and they're still building up on their lead. Heras now calling the team car forward. He'll be trying to get himself a fresh bottle on board.
Well, that's rather sad for Codol there because it looks as though he might well have broken his right arm, and he's also hurt his face quite badly too at the moment. That was a really nasty spill with the world champion Oscar Camenzin, who has ridden off. He's gone. And so too is the other crash victims at the moment. But Heras wants a little bit of assistance here, and he wants it quickly.
He still wants the team car to come up, but the referees will only let one team car come into the group at one time. Just a few moments ago, it was the Polti team car of Ivan Gotti who came up. Then it was the turn of Simone's team car to come up, and they will have to wait now for that team car to drop back into the line behind the race referees before they let Heras's team car come up to pass up a drink to him.
Well, they started the challenge very early today to make the big time. The big time gaps are there. What is this man thinking now, Ivan Gotti? He's a clear leader of the race overall, and he's racing to a pink jersey because it was made vacant by the disqualification of Marco Pantani. Jalabert, Di Paoli and Axelsson. Well, it's nicely Axelsson's got himself back in the action here despite that fall.
But he's got his jersey ripped to pieces on his back. He'd be happy to have Laurent Jalabert with him. But the 3 leaders, Phil, are still building up a pretty impressive lead over the rest of this field. The last time check we had was 3 minutes, but I think it's going to be a lot bigger than that next time we get an official check.
And there's still an awful lot of fight in those legs of Ivan Gotti as he continues to ride at the front and push the pace up for the Polti team.
Gotti doesn't care at all about winning the stage today. He's riding as much as he can at the front of the group to try and build up his lead. In the chase group behind with Salvadelli, he won't have any help at all from Richard Virenque because his teammate Ivan Gotti is at the moment in the process of winning the Giro d'Italia edition of 1999.
Well, Jalabert, Di Paoli and Axelsson, life is coming together a little bit for them now. They're being caught here by Sergei Gonchar. And number 132 now is Paolo Salvadelli, so he's got himself back in the picture alongside Jalabert. So he may yet be saving his second place overall, Paul.
Well, the advantage may actually go back to Salvadelli because he's in a pretty good group now of riders who are more than likely going to be prepared to work. And in this group, I can tell you, Ivan Gotti is not getting an awful lot of help from the other three riders because they realise that the race is being played out on the road and they are forcing him to do the lion's share of the work at the front of that group of three.
Well, De Pauli is the man sitting at the back of this group now, but they're getting themselves together. They've come together on the descent and on this flat bit of road. There's the tall numbers of the man that made the spectacular fall there, Nicholas Axelsson, sitting at the back. Had a great climb up too, but he's knocked himself around a bit now. But these boys are riding for the high places in the Giro now, and they're not going to look to anybody to help them. As Simoni sets the pace, followed now by the rider in second place is Gotti. Heras is going to finish high if he stays in this breakaway, but he won't know that Jalabert here is probably going to spoil a high finish for him in Milan tomorrow, providing he doesn't lose any more time along with Salvadelli.
The three leaders have still got a pretty impressive advantage, and it is surprising to see that that big group behind with Salvadelli isn't working better than it should be to try and pull back the advantage that these three have. We're now coming into the town of Aprica, and very shortly these riders will be seeing the final finishing banner, and that's what they want.
And who can blame them? 700 metres from the line now. Which one is going to take this one out? Because Gotti has done the lion's share of the work to make sure that he got the pink jersey that was refused by Pavel Salvadelli. As we go back to the group now containing Salvadelli and also Laurent Jalabert and Sergei Gonchar. These are the boys now who are shaping the rest of the race. But we continue on. We're over the top now and through Aprica and heading on down now towards the finish. That's the first lap through. We now have a little circuit around before we come back.
It really is tricky when you come into a town like this and you cross over the finish line. You almost breathe a sigh of relief, and then when they show you the sign, 1 lap to go, you don't feel too happy, but that may well be 1 lap, which is good enough for the man who's chasing to try and get back into the lead in the yellow jersey, Salvadelli. But it is a very tricky circuit around here, Phil. You can see most of it is in the town of Aprica, and there are some very difficult climbs.
And 3 minutes the gap as well, so there is a nasty little climb. It's not a mountain by the standards they've been over, but it is a very sharp ascent, and it could provide a springboard yet for the riders to break away. Sitting here at the back now, Richard Veronk. He's not been the force he normally is in the mountains. He's had his stage win, which he feels was his main target of this year's Giro. He's still hoping he's accepted for the upcoming Tour de France, and that is in doubt.
There's a big discussion about that. That will be announced after the finish of the Giro d'Italia, just who the final teams are that will be invited to the Tour de France. They always wait until the result of the Giro to decide who they're going to invite to the Tour de France, and after that we'll have a good idea of which riders are going to be on the start line. This is the chasing group though. Nicholas Axelsson is doing a good ride to stay in there despite that very nasty crash he had on the descent of the Motirolo. But the leading group of 3 riders now, in fact Simoni is helping a bit with Ivan Gotti, and he realises that he has got a chance now to move himself up to a podium position. That's why he's decided to start sharing the work at the front of this group of 3.
And I don't blame him, and Heras should really give, well, he is giving his all as well, because, you know, Jalabert and also Salvadelli, they are now at 3 minutes 2 seconds behind, and another couple of minutes lost before the finish, and we will be looking at the first 3 riders in the overall classification.
Heras is a very consistent rider in stage races, finished 5th overall in the Tour of Spain in 1997. But he's a very good climber when it comes to finishing at the top of mountains, because he also won a stage at the summit of the Alto de Naranco, which is just in the northwestern part of Spain. Still
going up at the moment. The gap is still increasing here, as this group now, Salvadelli, is just desperate now to try and limit his losses. He's got to have conceded victory to Ivan Gotti in the Giro, but he's fighting now to try and finish second, and that in itself would be a tremendous result.
Gotti, you can see he's looking pretty tired now. He's put a lot of effort into the success of this breakaway. I didn't think that they would stay clear to the finish, because it's an awful long way from the summit of the Motirolo down to the finish line in Aprica, and then this very difficult circuit around the town here, Phil. You can see the crowd have certainly turned out for this penultimate stage of the Giro d'Italia, because it has turned out to be a classic race. Despite the loss of Marco Pantani this morning, these guys have come out today and put in a pretty impressive performance.
5 kilometres to go, and the clock has started running again now as 3 riders are still clear. It's been an absolutely marvellous performance today. Here is the struggling figure now of the Swedish rider Axelsson, but he's been very, very good today to survive that tumble and stay into this second group here. As we now look at Savadelli, he knows, he's being told all the way, I think, about the time gap. He knows what he's got to try and do to hold on to his second place overall, and it looks as though he's driving clear, Paul.
He's really getting deep into his reserves now. He started this morning 34 seconds ahead of Ivan Gotti. At the moment, he's a long way behind that. But what he's trying to do is keep himself in second place ahead of Gilberto Simoni, who is putting in a storming performance. It really has been the revelation over the last few days of this Giro d'Italia. And Salvadelli now is, I suppose to quote you on many occasions, starting to sprout wings, because he's riding away from this group and he's finding force from I don't know where.
Well, that gentleman's running alongside all of the leaders here, so he's a pretty fit guy himself here as he shouts at Savadelli to drive on. The gap is counting over the top of the climb here. The leaders in the bottom of our picture on the way down towards the finish now in Aprica. Savadelli is trying desperately to rid himself primarily of Laurent Jalabert, but at the same time, he's got to hold on to this time deficit to those 3 in front. Otherwise, Roberto Heras and especially Gilberto Simoni will leapfrog him in the overall classification. These are difficult times for Paolo Savadelli right now.
Must have been a very strange day for him, starting the day being told that he's the new leader of the Giro d'Italia and then thrust into a position where he has to ride on the defensive, unable to match the pace of Ivan Gotti on the slopes of the Col de Mortirolo, and now he's trying to ride himself back up to a podium position here at the Giro. It's an amazing day that he will think about for many years to come and talk about to his grandchildren, the day that he started the Giro d'Italia as the overall leader and the day he had to fight back to keep himself in the top 3 towards the end.
And it's a big time gap because that clock continues to count at 3:44, and Salvadelli is getting near the 5 minutes deficit, and that will be big trouble for him as he drives on towards the summit. Well, there's no lack of support. The Italians here know their man, that's for sure, as they shout him up the hill. But it's 4 minutes now. It's going to be touch and go.
It's going to be very difficult to keep hold of his second place in the overall rankings. He looks over his shoulders. He realizes now he doesn't have anybody for company, but now he's reaching the summit of this climb on the finishing circuit around Aprico, and then all he has to do is plunge down towards the finish line, and he shouldn't lose too much more time on this descent because it is a pretty technical descent. Once again, he will take risks to try and keep himself as high in the overall rankings as possible. And Jaja in the Ciclamina jersey there in 3rd position for me has done a fantastic ride this year in the Giro d'Italia, and he too now is slipping away from the top 3.
Well, 4:18 over the top, Paul. I make it now with bonuses that Simoni is into second place overall in the Giro up there, and if the losses continue because he's pulling away from Jalabert, Savadelli, then in fact Heras will be up into 3rd place overall.
Chance here to see the speed on the descents. We're doing 80 kilometers an hour down here, which is 50 miles an hour. There's confirmation of the Gotti-Simoni group, and it really is a big gap down to Salvadelli.
Well, these have been fantastic crowds today. I think by most of them have come out to see Pantani win the Giro d'Italia here, but they've not been short in the enthusiasm for everybody else in his absence, as these 3 riders have really turned on the style today. You never know, Pantani may have had a bad day. He's been so brilliant so far. No one will ever know if he would have run out a clear winner of the Giro or not. And now these 3 in the last kilometre are going to have to sort it out, and it's always sad when 2 will have to lose because they've all ridden so well.
Well, Ivan Gotti's not going to worry too much about losing this stage here, because for him, he's been really the big winner of this afternoon's race, because he's going to come to the end of this stage and pull the pink jersey over his shoulders. Number 143, the sprint is starting. It's Simoni coming to the front, but you can almost feel the pain that Ivan Gotti is going through. He's had to do a superb performance today to get rid of everybody else in the Giro d'Italia and pull himself up to the top of the leaderboard.
700 metres to go to the line now. We've certainly got 1st and 2nd overall in this breakaway at the moment, and Heras could make it 3rd overall if the time gaps remain quite large. But he's now thinking probably of a stage win. Kelme have always taken stages in the Giro d'Italia. As we drop down from our helicopter here and see now it is Gilberto Simoni who's had his supporters all over the Dolomites today, and as a result of that has really responded. And I think you're absolutely right. Ivan Gotti has given 110%. He is just wanting this race to finish right now. He is so tired.
The freshest rider of these three should really be Roberto Heras. He'd like to ride into the wheel marks of Kepi Gonzalez. Kelme have already got a stage victory so far, and the other two guys in this group with him, Phil, have done nearly all of the work. If he's been an intelligent rider, he will have kept just a little bit under his belt for the final sprint.
But it wasn't too long ago when the crowd saw them pass through for that small circuit of some 50 kilometres, and now they're coming in for the sprint for the line. There are some riders still going through to do that finishing circuit, by the way. Now the sprint has begun. Heras has been put onto the front. Has he got the legs? It looks like this time he has. They're not even going to resist it. He takes the victory for Kelme, and second over the line is Simoni. Third is Gotti, and the clock starts now.
Well, it's going to be a long wait before we see this man Salvadelli come into the line. Look at the time there, Phil, 2 minutes 36 seconds. That's the group of Laurent Jalabert just behind. They're actually not very far behind Salvadelli, but he's ridden his heart out to try and keep himself on the podium of the Giro d'Italia after 3 weeks of racing, almost 2,500 miles, and you can see the fatigue as he rolls his body all over that machine, trying to get every last little bit of energy out.
Well, I can't believe it. He's got clear. He has really turned on the star to try and save a second place overall. I think he's lost it to Gilberto Simoni here, and he's going to find himself one place lower, but he isn't going to give up trying right now. This is the Jalabert group with the very brave Nicholas Axelsson still in there. As we switch back up to the rider racing and hopefully to finish fourth here. The clock, though, is heading out now towards 3.5 minutes, and this is a very long finishing straight.
I would say it's interminable for Paolo Salvadelli. He's been trying since the summit of that climb to get himself back into this bike race, to keep himself on the podium of the Giro d'Italia when it rides into Milano tomorrow. And this has been a very long time trial, this last 15 kilometres, and the pain is there. You can see on his face he's trying to get himself to the finish as quickly as possible. He really has had to dig deep at the end of this Giro d'Italia, and what a day he will have to talk about.
190 kilometres with the highest mountains in this race this year, and here he comes home. He's going to be over 4 minutes, and he's going to be desperately close to second overall. It's going to go to the bonuses on the line, I think. 4:04 is official time gap there. As the sprint comes in now, Jalabert, Gonchar, and Jalabert still finds the legs to sprint. He pips Sergei Gonchar and Daniela Di Paolo and Nicholas Axelsson. There's the result. Salvadelli now, has he done it overall? Because there's no doubt who the new leader is, Ivan Gotti. And as he gets his pink jersey ready, the overall situation, Simoni is second at 3:32. Salvadelli, 3 seconds back, is lying in third, and Jalabert is in fourth place. Well, the big showdown in Milan tomorrow, and there's still some racing to be done. And this is the last stage of the Tour. 116 survivors, 170 kilometres taken into the finish. And believe it or not, there is good news for Pavel Salvadelli, because they've reversed the decision overall. He is second by a single second over Gilberto Simoni, who is third. How about that? And now this will definitely be down to the sprint.
Certainly is a circuit race around the centre of Milano, and it really is going to be a very rapid sprint. A lot of the big sprinters not here, though, but certainly everybody is looking to get a win on the final day, because everybody, Phil, wants to win in a capital city.
And you can't blame them either, but no Mario Cipollini now is in this race, so we can expect there to be a surprise leader now, because also gone is Jerome Blyleven's. All the sprinters are watching this on television as they race up towards the line now. In fact, we've got Massimo Stratta trying to break through here, and Pieri, but Guidi gets it on the line. Well, I think he deserves it. He's tickled the front row in amongst the sprints this last 3 weeks. He gets the victory here, and watch how he does it.
Well, that's amazing. On the left-hand side is Strazza in the blue, and that's Guidi on the right-hand side, just coming up, timing it to perfection. The lunge of the bike over the last few metres gives him the win by a quarter of a wheel on the final stage of the Giro d'Italia.
So, Fabrizio Guidi in there ahead of Dario Pieri. Everybody given the same time, and a victory for the Polti man. He also, by the way, is the winner of the Intergiro competition this year. There's the confirmation of the result. Sergei Smetanin finishing in fourth place. And this is the man himself now, the winner of the Tour of Italy for the second time, in Ivan Gotti, telling everybody how he won and how he doesn't care about what happened to Marco Pantani. It wasn't his problem, and he hopes he will ride well in the upcoming Tour de France. A very controversial ending to what was a great Giro d'Italia, and I'm sure the Pantani story will simply run and run. But don't forget the name of the winner, because in the end he certainly deserved it, Ivan Gotti of Italy. For Paul Sherwin, I'm Phil Liggett saying, see you next time.